The price of chocolate. This editorial examines the political obsession with youth and contrasts efforts to woo young voters with the neglect of vulnerable children. The obsession of our politicians and others with the youth is undeniable. Obsession means an overwhelming preoccupation. In this context, it indicates an excessive focus on the young population. Undeniable is used here as an emphatic statement to stress that this focus is obvious. Since the country figured out the link between the rise in Imran Khan's popularity and Pakistan's youth bulge, every boomer and Gen Xer in public life and politics, and those in between, is keen to find a spot on the pedestal that the young of this country are holding up. Figured out means discovered or realized. Youth bulge is a demographic term describing a large proportion of young people. Find a spot on the pedestal is an idiomatic expression meaning to secure a place of honor or influence, here implying that older generations are eager to associate themselves with the appeal of youth. The youth is the new black, it seems, to use fashion lingo from a long time ago. The new black is an idiomatic expression borrowed from fashion, meaning that youth has become the dominant or most desirable trend. Fashion lingo refers to specialized vocabulary from the fashion world. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari makes it a point to mention his own age, and that of the country's majority, in nearly every speech, with a nod to how this is one page in terms of the number of years lived, which will eventually trump the oldies who may be popular or are trying to be popular with young Pakistanis. Makes it a point means deliberately emphasizes. One page is a metaphor implying that age is just a small part of a person's overall identity. Trump is a phrasal verb, here meaning to outdo or surpass. This sentence highlights how Bilawal uses age as a strategic tool to appeal to younger audiences. Maryam Nawaz, Chief Minister of Punjab, recently ended a whirlwind tour of her province's higher learning institutes, which was celebrated with much pomp and show. Whirlwind tour is an idiomatic expression meaning a very rapid, intense series of events. Pomp and show is a figure of speech referring to elaborate and ostentatious displays meant to impress. It was a bit reminiscent of Kamala Harris's election campaign in terms of its energy. Reminiscent means similar in nature. This sentence uses a simile by comparing the tour's energy to that of a well-known political campaign. And this weekend, the Chief of Army Staff also addressed a large gathering of students, which was covered widely. Addressed means spoke to. Covered widely indicates that the event received extensive media attention. His address came after a number of military officials, including the ISPR head, also visited different universities and colleges to address groups of students. Addressed groups of students means that these officials were actively engaging with young audiences. The sentence emphasizes a coordinated effort by military figures to connect with the youth. This interest in Pakistan's young population is not without reason. The phrase, not without reason, is an idiomatic expression, meaning there is a valid basis for this interest. The target is the young adult, who is relatively privileged, educated, and a voter. Relatively privileged means having more advantages compared to others. The sentence identifies the young adult as a key demographic for political support. In other words, it is someone who fits the profile of the voter who had made the PTI a phenomenon of sorts. In other words, is a transitional phrase used to clarify. A phenomenon of sorts implies that PTI's rise was significantly driven by this particular group, using a mild form of hyperbole to stress its impact. But outside of this possible voter, who has to be won over, the young in this country, especially less privileged children, get no attention. Get no attention means are completely neglected. The sentence contrasts the focus on potential voters with the disregard for vulnerable children. Not even that of the policymakers. This fragment reinforces that even those responsible for making laws and policies ignore the needs of less privileged children. Just consider the story of the 12-year-old who died in Rawalpindi last week. Just consider is an introductory phrase urging the reader to reflect on a specific example. She died of wounds inflicted on her by her employers. Inflicted means caused or imposed, here referring to the violence committed by her employers. According to one story, the woman she worked for beat her with a rolling pin. By the time the child reached hospital, she had multiple fractures, including one on her skull, which proved fatal. The semicolon here links two related facts. Beat her with a rolling pin is a stark description using literal language to convey brutality. Prove fatal means that the injuries directly caused her death. Her crime? She was held responsible by her employers for some missing chocolate in their home. The rhetorical question, her crime, is used as a figure of speech to underscore the absurdity of the situation. It implies that the punishment was grossly disproportionate to any wrongdoing. The couple who had employed her have 8 children of their own and yet had no qualms about breaking the head of someone else's offspring. No qualms means no feelings of doubt or hesitation. Breaking the head is an idiomatic expression meaning to inflict severe physical harm. It appears that they couldn't even be bothered to take 12-year-old Ikra to hospital. Some stories report that a woman who came to the house to teach the children the Quran took her to hospital. Couldn't even be bothered is an idiomatic expression indicating complete disregard. The semicolon separates 2 contrasting actions regarding her treatment. But it was already too late. Too late means that the opportunity to help had passed. She survived mere days before succumbing to her injuries. Succumbing means dying as a result of the injuries. Survived mere days uses a hyperbolic phrase to emphasize the brevity of her survival. The couple has since been arrested, but it remains to be seen how long they will spend behind bars. Behind bars is an idiomatic expression, meaning in prison. Remains to be seen indicates uncertainty about future developments. The story has jolted no one. Jolted means shocked or startled. This sentence uses understatement as a figure of speech to express the lack of public reaction. It has barely been mentioned outside news bulletins and newspaper pages, with a few quotes from mid-level government officials who have taken notice. Barely mentioned implies very little attention has been given. Have taken notice is an idiomatic expression, meaning have acknowledged or become aware of the issue. As I write this, I am not even sure what more attention for such a case would achieve. This sentence expresses skepticism about the impact of additional media coverage. After all, in the past, when a similar story has been noticed, it leads to just a temporary media blitz before it is forgotten. Media blitz is an idiomatic expression meaning an intense burst of media coverage. Before it is forgotten implies that the attention is short-lived. Initially, there is noisy coverage, followed by outrage and anger. Noisy coverage is a figurative expression describing a period of intense and loud media attention. Outrage and anger denote the emotional reactions that quickly follow. Then come the statements, visits, and photo ops of government people and a quick court trial. Photo ops, short for photo opportunities, is jargon referring to staged public appearances designed for media coverage. The sentence lists typical, superficial responses to public outcry. Through all this, the focus is on harsh punishments for the culprit. Little attention is paid to any mid to long-term strategy which might help to prevent vulnerable children from ending up working in homes where they are in danger. The semicolon connects 2 contrasting ideas: immediate punitive measures versus the lack of sustainable solutions. Harsh punishments means severe penalties, while mid to long-term strategy refers to plans designed to address underlying issues over time. But then, as a society, we are least interested in complex policy issues. Instead, we prefer instant solutions and fast food. Instant solutions and fast food are used as metaphors, figures of speech, to illustrate our desire for quick fixes rather than addressing systemic problems. Least interested is an idiomatic expression meaning not very concerned with. Overnight fixes are the name of our game. Overnight fixes is an idiomatic expression meaning rapid, superficial solutions. Name of our game is a figure of speech indicating what is most common or preferred in a given context. Hence, few of those who were outraged over the Tayaba abuse case of 2016 would have any idea of what happened later in the story. Nasser, hence, is a transitional word meaning therefore. This sentence implies that initial public outrage rarely translates into lasting awareness or action. Tayaba was the child who proved to be luckier than 12-year-old Ikra. Proved to be luckier is a comparative phrase indicating that, despite suffering abuse, Tayaba's outcome was somewhat better. Her story made headlines when pictures came forward of her bruised and injured face. Made headlines means received widespread media attention. Came forward is a phrasal verb meaning were revealed or published. Despite the beatings and burns, she survived after weeks of treatment, and the culprits served their eventually reduced sentence. Despite indicates that even though she suffered severe abuse, the outcome was different. Eventually reduced sentence suggests that the punishment was later lessened, a common outcome in legal cases. Similarly, those who spent weeks discussing the Fatima case never bothered to find out what transpired later. Similarly draws a comparison between two cases. Never bothered is an idiomatic expression meaning did not care enough to learn more. Transpired means happened or unfolded. Fatima was a 9-year-old who was allegedly killed in 2023 while working at the Haveli of a landlord in Cairo. Allegedly means claimed without definitive proof. Haveli refers to a traditional mansion or large house, often used in South Asia. The suspicious circumstances in which she was found in the CCTV footage that came to light hinted at abuse, domestic and sexual. Suspicious circumstances imply that the situation raised doubts about what really happened. Came to light is an idiomatic expression, meaning became known. Hinted at means suggested indirectly. The accused in Fatima's case, till last reports, was still making his way through the judicial system. Making his way through the judicial system means that his case was still under legal review, indicating slow progress in the legal process. But none of these cases has ever led to any pressure for reform or debate about what to do in a country where, according to an International Labor Organization report from 2022, 1 in 4 households employs a child for domestic work. Has ever led to means has not resulted in. Pressure for reform refers to public or political demand for change. The statistic underscores the widespread nature of child labor in domestic settings. In the face of deepening poverty, there is little hope that these statistics can change. For all the attention the issue gets from policymakers, they don't appear to think there is much to be done, except push for harsh sentences for those who get caught. In the face of deepening poverty means despite worsening economic hardship. The semicolon connects the observation that policymakers focus on punitive measures rather than addressing the root causes. But is it simply because they have no answers or because there is no political gain? This rhetorical question invites readers to consider whether the lack of effective action is due to incompetence or deliberate neglect for political advantage. Some of those who rule us think that reaching out to university and college students will win them the next election or cleanse Pakistan of the PTI and Imran Khan. Reaching out means engaging or connecting with. Cleanse Pakistan of is an idiomatic expression meaning to rid the country of a particular influence. This sentence suggests that targeting the youth is seen as a political strategy. But it seems as if those who are so poor that they have to place their young daughters in the homes of others to be abused and killed have even less to offer. This stark contrast highlights the disparity between politically targeted groups and the extremely disadvantaged. Have even less to offer implies that the impoverished have almost no political or social leverage. The writer is a journalist. Published in Dawn, February 18, 2025. Would you like any further refinements or additional details?